Might help if I switch to the right view. Welcome everyone to Down the Middle. As always, that was loud. As always, I am your host, Jake, and I'm joined by this. Wait, your name's not Brian? I'm sorry. I had my other
No.
intro queued up. I was gonna say the non-Hawaiian other podcasting lion, but your name's not Brian. I'm joined by Hakeem, everyone. You remember Hakeem?
Hello, guys.
Name's not Brian. I'm joined by Hakeem, everyone. Alrighty. Oh, hang on.
Uh-huh.
Can you say something for me, Hakeem?
Yeah, I'm there. You hear me?
We're about to find out. Can you say something for me, Hakeem?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, there you are. I don't know why I didn't hear you before. I guess the volume wasn't up enough. No biggie. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to Down the Middle. This episode is brought to you by Part of Your Broadway World podcast, another member, not an ember. I don't know what an ember is, but it's not that. Another member of the Arte Podcast Pantheon. We'll talk a little bit more about them later. But first, there's some business. So, part of a segment of certain podcasts that I do is a section I like to call "What Did We Fuck Up," which is usually me. And there's one that has been going, and I keep forgetting. But more recently, I uploaded a clip of a previous show, and I made an error. So I'm going to adjust those real quick. So the first one is on our TNA New Japan episode, or no, I believe it was the episode prior. I had made mention
Uh-huh.
of TNA doing something with the shell of the former Lucha Underground, Lucha Azteca. I was
Yeah.
incorrect. It's not TNA, it's MLW, but they are doing that. I just got my companies
Oh,
crossed.
okay.
And then the other one, and this is, I don't know if this makes it better or worse necessarily. Um, I mentioned in that same video clip, actually, or the video clip I just uploaded recently, I said that AEW pay-per-views were too long. Well, it turns out their run times are actually pretty similar to what WWE's putting out, around the 3.5 hour mark.
It don't feel that way though.
But
Like,
that's what I checked. I checked the last 2 years worth of pay-per-views, and they were on
uh-huh.
average 3 to 3.5 hours. In particular, the pay-per-view that I was complaining about, Double or Nothing 2023, I believe it was,
Yeah.
3 hours 38 minutes.
Really?
It felt like a 5 hour, 6 hour
I thought it
pay-per-view.
was. I thought it was like four
I
and a
thought
half
it was,
hours.
and wow, I don't know if that is better or worse for AEW. The fact that I was wrong about your runtime, or that a 3.5 hour pay per view feels like 5, 6 hours.
Yeah, it was like it was dragging on forever. Like it
And I wouldn't
really didn't
even,
feel that short.
yeah, and I wouldn't even consider that pay per view terribly bad. Like there were a handful of matches I didn't really care about, but all in all, I mean, CM Punk was in the main event. MJF finally got his comeuppance against Wardlow. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, the pre-show match doesn't count because that's usually.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say there was a bad match on the card. There was just a lot of fluff that I didn't really care about. But that's kind of indicative to AEW's problem, wouldn't you say?
Pretty much, yeah.
A lot of their TV segments just feels like they're filling time, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
But so those are the things that I messed up. So today's gonna be another AEW bitching session, as you probably inferred from the title, dear viewer. But in particular, the other day I uploaded a short to our YouTube channel entitled Tony Khan is an Idiot, and it's where I went on my diatribe about how do the Young Bucks still have jobs because they assaulted their boss, and the comment section is just, you know how when somebody doesn't understand, like they're saying stuff and they're proving you right with every word they say, but
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
realize
Uh-huh.
it.
Uh-huh.
So the comment section. So we've got AMC Donald, AEW Tribal Hate, Channel 132. I'll get round you all eventually. Now explain when Vince died and showed up on Raw a week later. Losers. Okay, I will explain it to you. Fun fact though, this, and actually this is somewhat serendipitous. Around that time, I actually had another internet show that dealt with pro wrestling called Weekly Wrestling Wrap Up. This was back when it was only WWE and TNA.
Okay.
We addressed that on that show and we said it was the dumbest fucking thing we'd ever seen on television. So, I would like to, and I shouldn't have to clarify this, which, by the way, for the person who called me a Jim Cornette cosplayer, thank you. I take it as a compliment, although I don't always agree with Jim Cornette. Generally speaking, with wrestling, I mean, he was in the business for over 30 years, so he would know much better than I. But
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things with him. Not everything, but a lot of the booking, I do agree. Yeah.
well, and I've heard Jim say some things that, like, just from my perception, and I'll be the
Hmm.
first to admit I'm probably wrong with a lot of stuff that I talk about because I'm not in this industry. I'm just a fan and I've watched it for a very long time. On the rare occasions I disagree with him, it seems like it's more of a preference thing because
Yes.
he'll give like a suggestion. I'll be like, I don't know, that feels a little old school to me, but that makes sense.
No, 100%. 'Cause it feels like he loves that NWA type era or Legends type era.
Well, but
You know.
what's funny is I'd be willing to bet that if I had been watching wrestling at that time, I probably would have loved it too. And I've gone back
Hmm.
and watched, like, WWE had a documentary on Peacock that was the history of the WWE Championship. It's not what I thought it was, but I still really enjoyed it. And they showed clips of some of those old matches, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
honestly, I I kind of want to watch this match because
Uh-huh.
they let you in on what the story was going into it. And my only disappointment with the Iron Claw movie was that I can't remember because I went to the bathroom, so I can't remember, and I could kick myself. I couldn't remember if they didn't put it in the movie or if it was just lackluster. When they did Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair for the title.
Okay. I vaguely remember it. Like I saw it, but I
I
really
think it
wasn't into
didn't.
it.
I think it didn't touch on it because I think I went back and watched. Yeah, I went back and watched the clip on the internet.
Uh-huh.
But guess what? It made me want to go back and watch the original match, and holy shit,
Uh-huh.
it was great. I absolutely would have been a fan of the Von Erichs if I'd been growing up in Texas and watching wrestling in Texas at that
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely would have been a world class fan.
Mhm.
Like, and honestly, like, you see a lot of recycled angles, and like there's a reason because it was pretty good stuff.
Yeah, still works.
Yeah, it still works. And then we got Spugo. One's a work and one's a shoot, brother. Welcome to wrestling. Oh, so I'm sorry, I didn't explain myself. So I shouldn't have to explain this, but just because I criticize AEW doesn't mean that I automatically think something that WWE or another company does is good. I'm criticizing
Hmm.
AEW in a vacuum. And a lot of my criticisms are pro wrestling. Like, Benji and I used to have this before Benji passed. Benji was the first co host on this show. He and I would have the same sort of debate where he'd be like, well, that's just wrestling. I'm like, it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
And I
you have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit, but some angles it really doesn't make sense. You know.
it's when they get to ridiculous. Like, I suspend my
Hmm.
disbelief enough. So, like, oh, why didn't Vince McMahon fire Steve Austin? Because Steve Austin was bringing in millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That I get. I can believe that 100% because there are people on a daily basis who deal with pains in the ass that bring in a lot less money than Austin, but they bring in money, so you just deal with it, right?
Yep.
And like, yeah, it's a little on the absurd, but it makes sense in the logic that they had set up. What doesn't make sense is firing someone and making a spectacle of. See, I wouldn't have the same criticism if they didn't air their dirty laundry out on live television in a desperate ploy to get ratings. That's where, because if they had not acknowledged on air that CM Punk was fired, I wouldn't have this criticism.
Yeah.
In the logic that they have established in their own television show, assaulting someone backstage will get you fired. Which is why after that happened, I said this after Brawl Out. I said, well, you can't have any backstage uh,
Yeah, like
attacks
brawls or
anymore.
segments. Yeah, yeah. No.
Yeah, you can't do it unless you want to go to the trouble of on-air suspensions or fines or whatever. And I mean, they
Yeah, yeah.
could
And that's
do
gonna get out real
that,
quick. Yeah.
but it's like they didn't think at all about what the ramification. And I know it's a change in wrestling mentality, but that's the problem because I
Hmm.
know kayfabe's dead, but when kayfabe died, the business changed because, well, I don't think kayfabe shouldn't be dead because again, even though we all know it's not real now, it's still presented in a way that to be an engagement, like, because like I know the Starship Enterprise isn't actually flying around or floating around, propelling around, pulsing around. I don't know.
Close enough.
Yeah, moving around the galaxy. But the show establishes a logic that is consistent within the show for the most part. Star Trek does goofy shit too. But like within
More
the
now than
context,
ever.
I was well, I haven't been watching the new series. I almost started watching Strange New Worlds. I almost did, but then I saw they did a musical episode and I said,
Yes, the dancing Cleons. Like it was horrible.
"Mm."
Like
And don't get me wrong, I love musicals, which actually that's a perfect segue, so I'm going to talk about the sponsor now, but I love musicals. I love them. They don't belong in Star Trek.
no.
The Scrubs musical episode was great, but but they made it make sense in the context of their show. And when the
Mm-mm.
character, for those who haven't watched Scrubs, the character that had the brain, was it an aneurysm? I can't remember. She had something in her brain that was making her perceive everyone was singing. When she wasn't in a scene, they weren't singing and dancing.
Yeah, that made it make sense.
They followed their logic. But speaking of musicals, Hakeem, are you a fan of musicals? I don't think I've ever asked you this before.
Some,
You live in New York.
some. Yeah, yeah, some. That's why I seen some. Some like The Lion King and a
Okay,
few
well, that's a
others.
perfect segue because if you like musicals and you like Disney, you definitely want to check out part of your Broadway world. Forget the camera's reversed, so I think I'm moving left and I'm moving right. The host, Haley, twice a month will regale you with special guests or commentary on all the happenings of musical theater and Disney. And actually, I'm kind of jealous of her because she and the Goosebumps Crew podcasts have been just nailing it with their guests. Most recently, she had a person who was involved in the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular show
Okay.
at Disney World.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I don't know how she's getting these people, but I'm not asking questions because it's she's pumping those numbers up, baby. But yes, so while you're watching your wrestling podcast, have your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever you choose to snuggle up with late at night, no judgment, and have them watch the part of your Broadway World podcast. That way they'll leave you alone while you're enjoying your wrestling podcast. And like, share, and subscribe, damn it. Anyway, so as far as one's a work, one's a shoot, brother, I think I pretty well already addressed that. Yes, I understand.
Hmm.
The difference between a work and a shoot, though, is when you do a work shoot, it's got to be consistent with the logic of the show.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time AEW's done this, by the way. They've been doing it realistically since day one, and it's because I think this is partially the Bucks. Because in the very early days, I used to watch Being the Elite religiously, and they did a gag, which
Uh-huh.
I actually found funny. They did a gag where they did a backstage brawl, and it was genuinely funny because but it was making fun of wrestling. It's two wrestlers who just started a wrestling company and were making fun of wrestling. Is they start doing a backstage brawl, but then out of like the camera pulls out and Scorpio Sky's part of it, but he's wearing just a towel, like he's
Oh.
like he had just been in the shower. Genuinely funny gag. Problem is though,
Mhm.
it now ruins the legitimacy of any backstage brawl that you do if you showed that on television. This was on YouTube, so it's whatever, but
Mhm.
I mean they constantly and then so let's point out too here. Tony Khan sustained a neck injury from
Oh
taking the world's safest pile
yeah.
driver. And then I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later on Dynamite, Orange Cassidy takes a spike pile driver on the steel steps and he's fine.
Yeah. Walk away fine.
Like
Yeah.
immediately. No
Yeah.
selling, no nothing.
Mm.
I mean, really?
Yeah. I guess they could say he's a wrestler, so he knows how to take a bump, but still, you know,
And for something, I mean, I guess that's my point though, is you have to explain your way out of it because the premise is so
yeah.
absurd.
Hmm.
But let's review some more of these hate comments, shall we? Oh, there's Jim Cornette cosplayer. Thanks, Clang, with your, I believe it's a Chicken Run profile pic. It looks like that art style. Anyway, and then we got Patrick Shade 3844. People missing the point. The point isn't that it's a work. The point is the works are inconsistent and low IQ. Oh, yeah, so this is the comment I liked because it's like, thank you. In the words of John Cena, like a broken needle, kid, you're missing the point. Because I'm not even saying the angle. I never said the angle in and of itself was bad per se. It's the
Yeah.
execution.
Yeah, it could
Because
work 100%.
oh, it absolutely would. Because like one
Hmm.
of the suggestions I made, assuming he's into it, of course, is if they'd done that to Shad at Tony's direction, except Tony can't play a heel at all, so this wouldn't have
Yeah.
worked. But like, or if they'd done it to Shad so that, okay, Shad doesn't need to be on TV. That means Tony can be on TV and be like, you fuckers, you hurt my father, blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
That would have worked. Or I'm actually playing in my mind. I think this may have been what Tony wanted to do with CM Punk, but then things
I can
didn't
see
work.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm imagining this playing out with CM Punk, and it's honestly way better.
Yeah.
Like it's way better. I don't know if Punk would have gone for it because I mean, it's how do I say
I
this without
think
coming
it
off?
would have been even better with Okada. Like, even if you had him in it.
If they built it up, but what did I say when Okada went to AEW? What did I say? He'd pal around with the Young Bucks and they wouldn't do shit with him.
Yeah,
But he's got the Continental title. Okay, who cares? I just finished watching Dynamite from this week. He defended it against Dax Harwood, an admittedly very talented tag team wrestler. Dax wasn't going to win that belt.
of course not.
And that's
Mhm.
the other problem with AEW is like when they do make matches, like most of them are obvious.
Yeah, it's a little too predictable. Like, you know you're gonna run into that sometimes, but still,
Well,
it's
but
just
the thing of it is they'll have a predictable match, but it'll be competitive. It's kind of like when
yeah.
Swerve Strickland just won the AEW title and he had a match against
Hmm.
Kyle Fletcher that was 20 minutes or 15 minutes.
Uh-huh. I saw a clip of it.
That should have been like a 5, 6 minute match.
Yeah, yeah. It went on way too long.
Swerve Strickland beat Samoa Joe for the title. And Kyle Fletcher, who, not dogging on him as a performer, but in the context of how he's been booked, and he's also, I think his tag team partner is injured, but when he was brought into the company, he was a tag team wrestler.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like, why? Like it doesn't make sense. And then Tony Storm just, and granted it was a non-title matchup, and I'm not gonna hate on that match too much because now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't too long. Although it was a multi-segment match and it shouldn't have been. So yeah, I
Hmm.
will dog on it. I don't even know who this girl was. I can't remember her name. She's supposedly part of the Outcasts, but I don't
Yeah,
know
I
who she
seen
is.
her. I forgot. I, I saw her, but I have no idea how her name is.
Yeah, but a multi-segment picture-in-picture match with the women's world champion against her. Now, if it had been like Saraya,
Hmm.
which I think maybe Saraya is not cleared to, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah, yeah.
somebody who obviously can't be Serena Deeb because they've got a match coming up at Double or Nothing, which I'm debating. I don't think I'll watch that too because I'm also very disappointed with what they're doing with Will Ospreay. Like,
Honestly, with all of them, I'm not sure anybody booking really good. No, in the past. 3 weeks or so.
3 months.
Oh yeah.
But so to illustrate my point here, I will say it before I'll say it again. I want to love AEW. I want AEW to succeed. Hell, I think I want to be a Young Bucks fan. I don't think I can, but like case in point, I went to 5 bookstores when this came
That's
out
cool.
and couldn't find it. And I got the where's it at? The you say it's the signed edition, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I went to 5 bookstores because I didn't want to wait for Amazon. There it is. Yeah, got that. So
That's cool.
I want to be a Young Bucks fan. It's actually a really good book. I do recommend it. It's a very good book.
Hmm.
But like they just make it so damn hard. And they can't act. Sorry guys, you can't act for shit. So stop trying. And just because you make your voice breathy and say hey hey hey, that doesn't make you a villain. That just it's not working. Quit it. Please stop. And then we got Iwo Woa saying it's not real for fuck's sake. I think Gobo said, we don't care for fuck's sake. Brian Delgado says it's called shitty writing. Yes, sir, it is. Actually, I would say it's no writing because a lot of this does kind of seem like they're making it up segment by segment because you'll also notice the shows really don't have like a what would you call that? Like a
Like
flow
a
to them.
flow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It
It's
seems
kind of
inconsistent.
random. Yeah.
Yeah, like disjointed. Like it's whatever comes random out of a bingo hat or ball.
It's like the South Park episode with the Family Guy writers with the manatees and the idea balls.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That's fairly apropos because I'll tell you what. We're gonna do a little experiment here to see if this works. So I'm gonna pull up the AEW roster page, and actually we'll do this again in a real way because I have like a randomized wheel app that I can use to perfectly illustrate my point here. But okay,
Uh-huh.
let's play a game here. Okay, we're gonna open the show with a tag team match with Lee Johnson and Mark Quinn against Max Caster and Mark Davis, who's injured. He can't be on there. And Daddy Magic, Matt Menard. And then a singles between Mark Briscoe and Matt Taven. Well, that's a Ring of Honor match because they both have Ring of Honor belts.
There's some people I didn't even know that still was in there. Like
Oh, believe you me, I want to, and we might do this next time. Brian and I ages ago went through the AEW
uh-huh.
roster and we did basically like would we keep them, fire them, or like drastically change.
Yeah.
Like it'd be a
Yeah.
keep, but drastically change what they're doing because it sucks.
Uh-huh.
And I think we should do that again, maybe next time. Because this roster page keeps getting bigger, but honestly, it's getting filled with names that I'm like, I either don't know who they are or
Yeah.
didn't know they were like I didn't know what the hell is the Spanish Announce Project? And Helico's not even Spanish. I know he was in a lot. I know he was performing in Mexico. I get it, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
doesn't. But like, really? Arya Davari? He doesn't. Does he even wrestle there?
He did well, he was part of that big
Once?
team. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where it was him
Who the fuck is
and
Bishop Khan?
Bishop. I have no idea. Bishop.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I know
They
who
still
Brian. I know who
they
Brian
have
Keith is.
they have that boxer that like
Anthony
knock out.
Agogo.
Yeah, they still have him like one match.
Well, you know
So
what though, and that's believe it or not, I actually said that was somebody I would keep, but I would drastically change what they were doing with it
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
because, like and I know this is gonna trigger some people, but WWE's approach of getting athletes and training them to be pro wrestlers is actually extremely effective. And this goes back to the technically it goes back to the 90s, but really like when they started to oomph up their developmental system with OVW,
Hmm.
like they'd been doing that before, but that's when I think it really like they perfected their methods. And then you have
Yeah.
like there's a ton of names. You Chad Gable, Tiffany Stratton, former, like competitive gymnast. You've got people
Hmm.
like I think even Otis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think Otis was an amateur wrestler, although don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up. But uh, um, Jason Jordan, but obviously he got injured, but he's still a producer. He went through the developmental system.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, I know they went through and signed a bunch of indie guys, but there's a ton of Braun. Well, no, Braun. I know Braun Breaker was an athlete, but he's
Yeah,
connected to a
played
wrestling
football or
family.
something.
So, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That guy played football. You can tell by how he
Yeah,
spears. He played football.
yeah.
He played football hard. But I mean, it's like, and so somebody like Anthony Ogogo, if he's booked properly, already has legitimacy stepping into that ring. He's a boxer,
Hmm.
but AEW will turn him into a submission wrestler. It's like he's a
It's like
boxer.
it's like they don't use their own strengths with them. They use it against them.
No, actually, I take that back. They wouldn't turn him into a submission wrestler. They'd have him doing moonsaults. See, that wasn't a joke. And then we got Don't Matter 966, bros learning the difference between a real situation and a storyline. But it's okay. Someone had a retort. He's like, you're learning that if you try to work shoot everything you do, people will apply logic to it. Not to mention, TK made Punk's firing a TV moment, opening the door for it, which I actually didn't see that comment before. But yeah, that's literally what we said at the start of the show.
Yeah,
And
and
we
that was
got
the issue.
we got Bobby Two Chains. It's called a wrestling storyline, bud. Tartar sauce says, and it's trash. And then this is what happens when you apply logic to an illogical situation. It's pro wrestling. It's never made sense. That's not true. Pro wrestling actually used to make sense if you forget things like The Undertaker.
Yeah,
But even then,
exactly.
so well, but okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm talking about certainly by the ruthless aggression era.
Hmm.
Technically, like they didn't actually expect you to believe that he was dead, right? It was a
Yeah,
moniker, and they actually did it perfectly because how do you get away with a gimmick like The Undertaker? You don't explain it. It just has an aura about it. He could be, and which they were doing it with Aleister Black when he was in. He's just a spooky
yeah,
guy. Maybe he had paranormal powers, but they never actually did backstage segments showing it.
that's true.
You don't know, but they never talked about it. He just had an aura. They didn't turn the lights out every time he went to the ring. Sometimes he would just wrestle. Imagine that.
Yeah, I miss seeing him wrestle.
Oh, I
Seem
want him
like
to go
one
back. I want him to go
once
back to
every six
WWE.
months.
I obviously I can't speak for him, but I got the sense that when Triple H took the reins back, and like I almost got this impression instantly because if you recall, this was back when he said like he was still under contract and he was like at one point he asked for his release and they said no, but he was like, I don't think I want to wrestle anymore. And I
Yeah,
was like, no, I think you want to go back to WWE.
yeah. I have a feeling he'll be the next one.
Well, and I think he's waiting for his contract to run out because I can even
Hmm.
tell when he's in the ring. Like, again, I might be reading it wrong. I don't mean phone it in a bad way, but I do kind of get the sense that it's kind of like, okay, I have to go do this thing.
Yeah, this in the beginning it felt like he enjoyed it more, like it was more him, his story, but now it feels like he's not being forced to do it, but I don't know.
Kinda
Yeah.
contractually obligated to do.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But and again, it makes sense because like when he came to AEW, he had gotten released, so it's like okay, I need to work. And at the time, his wife had been released prior to him, or
Oh
I think
yeah, I
no,
forgot about
I
that.
think I think she got released later. Now that I think about it, but then she came back, and then
Uh-huh.
I'm sure he was probably like, hey, how are things there? And now, at least nowadays, she's probably like, it's great, it's fantastic, and I'm sure he would love to be traveling and working with his, not with his wife, because fun fact, they've been married for several years, but they never actually worked together on screen. They actually
Yeah.
worked opposite one another. I can't remember if
Yeah.
they were married by that point, but and actually, it's one of my favorite matches of all time and actually made
Hmm.
me a fan of Andrade because up to that point when he was in NXT, I was just like, I don't get what is so amazing about this guy. And then he had that match with Aleister Black for the NXT title,
Oh yeah, I
and
remember that.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it, I get it. But yeah, Zelina Vega was his manager at the time, so
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is odd.
yeah, it's like, but it's only if you know, and like I happen to
Exactly.
know
Yeah, yeah.
because I followed their YouTube channel because they're fucking adorable together. But and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I watched her sometimes on Twitch or when she had like a Twitch. Like I
yeah,
watched that.
speaking if Zelina, which I think was she using a voice changer for that prank call she did to Dominic? I think she had
Oh
to
yeah, I
be.
remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because if
No,
that
no,
wasn't
no. I think
a
that was
voice
her. No,
changer,
I think that was her. I think that was her voice, that little kid or something.
I'm telling you what, if she didn't
Yeah.
use a voice changer,
Uh-huh.
she's got a future in voice work because that was incredible. But
That
and
was pretty
I may or may not be slightly jealous of Mr. Black
funny.
because I mean, yeah. Anyway, but I'm with you. I think when his contract runs out, he'll be back to WWE so fast. He'll actually the lights will
Yeah.
go out because he tripped over the power cord running to the ring.
Him and Buddy Matthews.
Yeah, because oh, this how about this storyline? Okay, so
Everybody leaves
you've got
the whole House of Black.
no check yeah everybody fucking leaves. No, check this storyline out. They both go back to WWE, and you've got Judgment Day feuding with the LWO, and then these dudes just walk in and be like, "What the fuck? Why you hanging around all these dudes?" And Rhea just looks up and be like, "Where were you?" For those of you who don't know, Buddy Matthews is Rhea Ripley's husband, her real husband.
Yeah. Oh, they got married?
Oh yeah, they've been married for a few years now,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
which makes sense because they're both Australian.
Yeah. He
I don't
was
think
with
he's from
Alexa Bliss, I think, for a bit
she. Oh, I
in
think
the
you're right.
beginning.
Lucky bastard. Anyway, oh, let's see what else we got. Oh, this was my personal favorite one because this just illustrates the level of delusion, right? Even in kayfabe, it makes sense. One guy is a hired hand. The others are executive vice presidents. Man, this was an easy do not recommend. Okay, so by virtue of that logic, if let's see, what's a good example here?
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense.
Well, okay, so let's even assume, all right, which I'm certain that would be a fireable offense because okay, an executive vice president, that's not a real thing. Like, okay, for example, I'm vice president of operations, and this is actually true. I'm vice president of operations in a media company. I can still be fired.
Yeah.
Like it's especially now. You know what they don't call Subway employees. They call them sandwich artists because all these title enhancements. It doesn't and founders clauses, if such a thing even exists, which I don't think it does. But actually, you know what? Since I always say Google is free, let's see what Google has. Clause. All right. The Founders Clause in bylaws can protect founding directors by giving them longer terms, allowing them to be reelected, and ensuring that only a unanimous vote can remove them. It can also provide a predetermined set of reasons for removing founding directors that ordinary directors don't have. However, some nonprofits consider founders clauses to be a way for founders to avoid being voted out by the board of directors. Most states don't approve of creating a founders clause for this purpose. And let's see if founders clauses are applicable in Florida.
I'm just gonna look at that. Like which states it matters.
Damn go. Okay, founders clauses are legal in Florida. But okay, so this means one of two. So let's assume that their founders clause, because again, I can come at this from several angles. So let's assume that their
Hmm.
quote unquote founders clause protects them from being fired if they assault the president and CEO of the company. Okay. One, that makes Tony Khan the biggest moron on planet Earth for writing that into a contract. Two, it says nothing about Tony Khan not being able to sue them for assault and battery,
Yeah,
which,
still
guess what?
illegal.
Yeah. It also doesn't stop him from pressing charges because that was not in a sanctioned match, which means it is not under the jurisdiction of the athletic commission. It's under the jurisdiction of whatever municipality they were in. So he absolutely could press charges against the Young Bucks and Jack Perry. Yeah, he
Yeah,
didn't. That's assault.
yeah, and like, why does Jack still have a job? Like, he doesn't have one.
That's another thing. So it's like again, so like okay, maybe the Young Bucks are protected, which I've already addressed that previously.
Yeah,
Like I
for
don't
sure.
think a founders clause allows you to come up and bitch slap your boss and keep your job, much less give them a pile driver. But Jack Perry can be fired instantly by Tony Khan. The Young Bucks cannot protect him. And why would you?
And tell me, was he already fired or did he quit or something? I mean, he
He
tore up his
was
contract.
he was well, okay, but Tony reinstated him before he did that.
Okay,
But
okay.
okay, if the Young Bucks can protect somebody from getting fired, surely they can hire someone. So why did Jack need him to be reinstated in the first place? The Young Bucks could have done that. You didn't
Yeah.
need to do this. If you wanted to punch a guy in the stomach, just do it. And then after that, they say, "Oh yeah, hey, 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 hey. By the way, Jack Perry, we hired him back with the and then like Nicky again with a substantial pay raise."
It just
And
didn't work.
and Jack Perry's another. I want to be a Jack Perry fan. I do.
Oh, I was
I
like when he
was.
first started, like a lot. Like I really liked him. But now it's like, he lost something.
I think it was Brian Last from Jim Cornette's podcast who said podcast, not podcast, podcast who said something to the effect of he looks like a kid playing the role of a badass, but he can't fit in the like he can't, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
And
It's like he was
honestly,
trying to do what his dad did, like, but not really have like the acting chops to do it.
I mean, and the thing of it is again, I addressed that because I said even before shortly before JR said it on air. I'm sure JR had been saying it since he got there. He's like, well, damn, kid, you can't be. Jungle Boy forever.
Uh-huh.
I said they need to start sneaking in Jack Perry, which they did, and kudos to them.
Hmm.
But I mean, he's not a heel. He's not. He's too young to be he's too young and not smarmy enough to be a good heel. He's got go away heat, as Jim Cornette would say.
Yeah, he was much better as a not Hill,
He was great as a
babyface.
babyface. Do you
Yeah,
remember the beat the clock challenge he did with Chris Jericho way back? I think that was in
yeah.
2021. No, I think that might have been in
Uh-huh.
2019. That was great. That was fantastic. He lost the match, but he won the challenge because he beat the clock.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, does he wants to be like this Hill, or did he prefer how he was before?
So here's
I
the
don't know.
problem I think is kind of prevalent, and again, I could be wrong here, so correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there, but it seems to me like a lot of wrestlers really want to be heels because it's more fun.
Hmm.
And frankly, it's probably easier if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to be a great heel, but just to go out there and play a heel, I think is
Yeah, yeah.
tremendously easier because
Hmm.
but some people are just baby faces, right? And until Jack Perry gets a little bit older, he's not a convincing heel. He doesn't have size per se. He's not particularly intimidating or menacing. So
Most of
he
them
can,
aren't. Oh,
well, yeah,
not on AEW.
most of them are, yeah. But it's like the Young Bucks being heels. Like they're not they're not
Yeah.
they're not intimidating. I don't buy it. They can be comedy heels all day long, but comedy and wrestling rarely mix. Sometimes it works. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works. But well, again, so like I always point out because people say this all the time when I criticize like Orange Cassidy or Dan Houser. Like, well, what about Santino? I'm like, yeah. How many times did Santino win?
Yeah.
Virtually never.
You're right. He just did the job and it was entertaining, and that's it. Look at our truth. How many times he won?
Archer, and again, Archer's a little bit different though because Archer can go. It's like he
Oh,
chooses
absolutely.
not to.
Still.
But
Yeah.
that's kind of like Santino in the sense that like, well, God, if he'd just be if he'd stop being a moron, he might actually win because you know.
Hmm.
But I always do kind of regret that he didn't get. I don't think he got the run that he deserved. But I mean, take that with a grain
Yes.
of salt because he was on TV all the time, and I'm sure he made a ton of money.
Uh-huh.
And if all I had to do was throw on a bad Italian accent and get beat all the time, I'd do it.
He was entertaining.
Oh, entertaining as
Yeah.
hell. I love the compilations where this is what I love though. I do love the fact that a lot of I love the fact that a lot of time I love the fact that no, I actually hated the Cobra.
Oh, really? Oh, I love the Cobra.
I couldn't stand I loved JTG's sell on it that one
Yeah,
time.
get the Venom.
Just just because. Again, I love the commitment to the bit. Okay, I love and I love apparently everybody wanted to sell the Cobra, which is why he did it all the time. Apparently that was like, can you give me the Cobra? Which in that one aspect I love. But there's so many great compilations of Santino trying to get people or getting Santino getting people to break character. I think my favorite one is John Cena.
Oh, yeah.
And Cena just can't
Yeah.
hold it. So, but I do love hearing the stories and then they put the footage next to it. It was like they're trying to get like Taker to break character or something like that. Or like how the Rock would oversell the stunner just to make Steve Austin laugh.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff I love. But again, that's like right on the edge where it's not if you know you'll see it, but you may not see it if you don't know. Or like I do love what I think it was no, it's not D'Lo Brown. Oh God, I'm blanking on the name. This is embarrassing. The Godfather.
Oh,
Godfather?
yeah, it's The Godfather.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
his real
Godfather.
name?
I'm
Uh,
just I'm asking for clarification. When he's like He tells Taker, he's like, I know you. You love hoes. And Taker
Oh
just has
yeah,
to look down so the hair covers.
yeah, yeah.
Or how the
Mhm.
whole this is your life segment with The Rock was just Mick Foley trying to break The Rock.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was really
And
good.
how that comedic genius just rolled with it.
Mhm.
Like, The Rock remembers you didn't let him get to first base. I'm like, oh my God, how do you come up with that crap on the fly? Like, for every one of them.
Yeah, those good times. I miss those.
I think they're
90s.
coming back. I'll be honest. I think they're coming back.
I hope. I know it won't be as good as them, but like at least something close to it, you know.
I don't know. I mean, look at the brief gold nugget we had with Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes palling around together.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was
That
really good.
was that was good. Especially now, but WWE has gone through periods where when they realize they if they just let most people if they realize that if they just let them be themselves, they will get over,
Yeah.
right? And like honestly, Cody's that way. Cody got over when Cody started being Cody. And that's the whole reason he left WWE in the first place.
Yeah.
But so this was actually a comment thread, so I'll read it again. They said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, this is a new comment." But good job, you figured out wrestling isn't real, genius. Also, did you ever consider the part about firing Punk was a work too? Except we know it wasn't a work, so they made it crystal clear that it wasn't a work. Like,
Yeah. Him coming out there in Chicago saying he fired Punk. You know?
that was a tremendous mistake. It
Yeah.
really, really was. Because, okay, so let's assume everything happens the same way, except for that. Now, Tony Khan probably did it to stop the place from rioting
Oh
because
yeah,
they were
yeah.
expecting Punk. But, I mean, it's kind of unavoidable.
It was. Especially like it was like kind of like smuggy type. I don't know. I didn't like
He
he brought a chair or something, I think. He sat
he
down.
he went out there actually expecting that crowd to sympathize with him instead of what
Yeah.
we all thought was like you were scared for your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That part. Yeah.
I understand being scared to get punched in the face. Like that may very well that's in the realm of possibilities. Scared for your life. You're surrounded by a bunch of 250 plus pound dudes that you're paying millions of dollars. They're not gonna let Punk kill you.
Yeah. This is
They will take him out. Joe would have legit put him to
I would
sleep.
have said,
It's like,
yeah, Samoa Joe was there.
look at he signs my checks. But then in response to that comment, we got Taunt 2 saying, who hurt you? And then we got at Taunt 2, Marks like the person in this video who wants to ignore the 10-year rivalry between Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. We already we already went over that. It's different. For one thing, they drew a fuck of a lot more money and had a fuck of a lot more viewers.
Yeah.
The average Raw rating like back then would have ranged anywhere from 5 to 8 million.
And this would work if Punk was actually still there. Like if
Exactly. This
you know,
this
like
angle could still work. Honestly, it is
mhm.
legitimately salvageable. But what did they do? They used it to make another Anarchy in the Arena match.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And here's
To take
okay,
back
okay,
AEW.
and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but let's assume that this is what I think it is, and that this is Tony Khan's wish fulfillment. And Tony Khan wants to do something in a wrestling ring. Honestly, Anarchy in the Arena is the best way for him to do it because it's probably the safest way for Tony to be involved.
It is. It's the only way he could
Yeah,
legitimate hit someone.
well, but Tony can be protected, and honestly, if they did it,
Yeah.
and he's in there with legit veterans, he's in there with Danielson, he'd be in there with Eddie Kingston. I forget who else is on Team AEW. I don't know why Moxley's not in there. Is Moxley in there? I don't know.
Maybe Brian
Well,
Dan
let's.
Bryan.
I know Danielson and Kingston are a part of it,
Yeah.
and FTR.
Okay.
Okay, so he's in there with people that can look out for him,
Hmm.
and you've got the Bucks, Jack Perry, and Okada, and I'm sure you can find some other lackey that they can get to get Shad Khan. Where's my money? Where's my money? No, they can
Slap around $100 bills.
stop spending my money. Yeah, he throws $100 bills and paper cuts people's eyes. Like, but okay, so if you want to do an Anarchy in the Arena match with Tony, Tony can have his wish fulfillment, but then it makes sense because Tony's actually there. Because the problem with this is Tony looks like a bitch. Because say what you will, at least Vince McMahon got in the ring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Vince
it's
McMahon got
different
in the ring.
people.
I
Like
know, but I'm just
yeah,
saying.
like Vince can actually wrestle
Can he though?
somewhat, but oh, not now.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan is taller than some of the male roster members, so
Oh wow,
well, I think he's the same height
I
as Orange Cassidy. So,
think you're right.
I mean, that might be why they won't do it because when Tony Khan actually stands next to some of these guys, like I said before, I'll say it again. The first time I saw AEW live, like Trent Beretta always looked like a fairly large guy, athlete
Yeah.
build on TV. I
Mhm.
couldn't get over how small he was in person. I was just like, wow, that is wild to me.
It's funny because I never noticed Adam Cole being so small
Oh,
until
I
he got
did.
to like AEW. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I could see it, but like, it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't see
I know what you
it
mean.
that much.
He was never a big guy, but he at
Hmm.
least looked he at least looked like an athlete in NXT.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I never
And
really like thought that like his size was a topic or anything like that. But,
yeah, I was Stone. And then that person, another person commented that comment, but Vince didn't show a video of Brett punching him and said, "Quote, I was afraid for my life and I had to fire him." Just then to get beaten and bloodied by Stone Cold, who suffers no consequences. He broke kayfabe to explain why he screwed Brett, but the reasons given never matched up with what Austin was doing on TV. AEW is going against its own logic, which isn't the first or last time it's happened in wrestling, but it still negatively affects the show as a whole when you don't follow the rules that you yourself put in place. And then somebody responded to that, how did it negatively affect the show? AEW did something controversial, and that got a lot of people looking at the product. Actually, it didn't. They had a minimal spike in ratings at best because
yeah,
people wanted to see the footage. That was it.
yeah.
And it shows in the ratings because immediately after they aired the footage, they lost a lot of people.
Hmm.
They had an amazing Dynamite where Jack returns. Amazing is a strong word. So how did this negatively affect the product? Oh, I don't know. The entire sports world is making fun of the owner of the company. I'm not going to
And
comment that Tony Khan did or his intentions, and I'm not going to defend it either. But I think this was a marketing decision. Well, no shit, Sherlock. And taking it as that, it's a pretty damn good decision. And before you even start, I don't care about ratings. Well, okay, that's so you're right in line with AEW then.
yeah, I was gonna say ratings do matter. I don't
What's
care about ratings, but they do matter. I
okay,
know
okay.
now.
They don't just matter, they're it.
Yeah,
You have a television show. If no one watches said television show, television network will say, we're going to replace you with reruns of a sitcom from the 80s.
that will draw more, way more.
Exactly. Because, spoiler alert, it's the wrestling business. But that's what Punk said. This is not a company that's interested in generating money. And it's obvious.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
like
refreshing. And I was in a bit of disbelief because I'm like, surely that can't be true. When Punk said that, I was like, oh no, it's true. And then some, I wasn't going to mention ratings, but you can't say it was a successful marketing decision and then say, quote, I don't care about ratings. For the week they showed the Punk video, they got a lot of ratings and it did help Jack Perry for a little bit before it fell back to normal and kept failing, which actually is true. I think the average rating per episode went from somewhere around 800,000 to 700, and they're close to getting into the 600s.
Yeah, I saw that
It's
today.
not good. They got a blah, 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 blah. But my whole thing is that Tony took the Punk situation and basically said, "quote This thing is real. The rest of the show isn't, but this is real." Part of wrestling is immersing yourself into it and believing that it is real, believing that Swerve is really struggling to beat Joe, and forgetting that the result was decided way in advance. WWE is doing it now with Ridge Holland. His gimmick is, quote, I keep hurting people and I don't want to. But as a wrestler, shouldn't that just be part of the job? It breaks the illusion in a way that I personally feel shouldn't be done unless it's for something like a retirement or injury. Respond. I said I got a lot of people looking back at the I said it got a lot of people looking back at the no, it didn't. It got zero new viewers.
Yeah, no
No.
retain. No, it didn't
No.
like it didn't keep no new
All
viewers.
these the only people that you may have gotten back are the people that said, "Oh, well CM Punk's not in AEW anymore, so I don't care to watch."
Hmm.
And honestly, I was kind of one of those people. If I wasn't doing this show, I don't think I'd be watching AEW television at all. I'd be disinterested.
I'll watch clips, but like,
So you're
I,
welcome.
you know.
You're so you're welcome, YouTube. I'm doing this for you. You did this to me. Um, Again, I'm not going to justify what Tony Khan did. You just did justify what Tony Khan did. I said, but it was good marketing strategy. Again, no, it wasn't. Same marketing strategy that was used back in the Attitude. This is vastly different than the marketing strategy that was used in the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era that you're talking about, with Vince becoming a heel, was the result of a real life thing that happened and everyone knew happened, and they rolled with it. They took something that was real and integrated it
Yeah.
into their storyline. But you know what they didn't do? They never pointed to something else and said, this isn't real. They never once did that. Only in a different sort of way, but still the same. I'm looking at the whole situation from the perspective of a guy who watches wrestling, not from a guy who tries to get intertwined in the business. Bro, they're the same thing. It's like, okay, if you're like take a sport like boxing. If you are into boxing, you follow careers of certain fighters. Like, you know who the world champion is, you know who the number one contender is, you know who's, and you debate about who's going to win this fight. Like when Canelo has a fight, there's constant debates. You got fucking Jake Paul and Mike Tyson are going to be fighting in July, and it's
Oh yeah,
pure
I forgot about
speculation.
that.
It's pure
Yeah.
you. What do you mean you're not following the business? If you're a fan of boxing at all, you're like, Mike's gonna fuck this kid up. Honestly, we're all hoping. I don't. I have my, I have my doubts because I think this is kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a work, but
Oh yeah, 100%. I think honestly, I think he's just going to like not going to take a dive really, but not going to win either.
I mean he might
Or
even win, but it's not
yeah,
what this fight
it
should.
would.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
and I'm not even gonna say it's gonna be a first round knockout because Jake Paul is actually a talented boxer,
Hmm.
but he is not a professional boxer.
Yeah.
Like if he, because and here's the thing, and then people argue with me, they're like, yes, I know I'm not a boxer, but like if he were, he'd be competing as a legitimate boxer,
Yeah. Not
but
beating old people.
he's not. Like put him in the ring with Canelo. Canelo will fuck him up two ways, like
Yeah.
2 ways till next week. Like Canelo will fuck him up so fast. And Canelo is, don't get me wrong, Canelo's a great boxer. I'm not taking anything away from Canelo, but he ain't the best.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, he fought Floyd Mayweather. I'm like, yeah, and Floyd Mayweather may as well have been taking a nap.
He was. He was playing with him.
Oh, was that Logan Paul?
No,
No, it was
that
Jake.
was Logan. No,
Oh,
that
it
was
was
Logan.
Logan. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Oh, okay.
Logan.
So he hasn't even fought Floyd
Yeah.
Mayweather.
Yeah.
But come on, that's you can't convince me of that. It's like, I just watch wrestling. I don't follow the business. Well, okay. I thought what they did on Dynamite was cool. Nothing else. I don't care about hypocrisy. I care about the show and I watch is good. I care about the show I watch is that I care that the show I watch is good too, and that's why I have a problem with all this
Yeah,
nonsense.
because it's not good. It's
You
just
say
not good.
you say you don't care about this is a response. You say you don't care about hypocrisy, but originally got upset that people were criticizing the Tony Elite angle, but didn't criticize the Vince Austin stuff. And I agree that they got ratings specifically for the Punk video, but you left out the part where the ratings immediately fell right after that. I want the
Yeah,
show to be good too. That includes wanting storylines that make sense. I know that's not always going to happen in wrestling, but I feel like Jack Perry still being employed is too big of a plot hole to just ignore.
yeah.
This guy is a dummy, lol, H boy. I don't know what that means. See, wow, I'm sorry, Whisk. Like, I'm not trying to single you out, man, but your logical consistency is non-existent. It's like, no, I don't care about hypocrisy when it comes to the show that I'm watching. I do care about hypocrisy when it comes to WWE fans criticizing literally every single thing Tony Khan does. Not everything. I mean, most of it, but not everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
majority
Vince
of
McMahon
it.
literally Vince McMahon literally trafficked women. That case is still ongoing, but yeah, yeah, probably.
I can
Uh,
see
sold pictures to Brock Lesnar. Actually, I believe he gave pictures to Brock Lesnar. And his son-in-law, who runs the company now, won't make a statement announcing it. No, I mean, why would he?
it wouldn't make sense. It would actually hurt him more to just
Well,
even
but
acknowledge it.
let's. So here's the thing. Let's just like going to bat for Triple H here in a very very corporate world. Why would Triple H denounce something that could potentially hurt his business by it being even out there could
Yeah,
potentially have a
even
negative
mentioning it.
light. So when him denouncing it does nothing for the victim, it does nothing for the case, it does nothing for him, it does nothing for the company because the company has already denounced it by removing Vince McMahon.
Yeah,
Like they've already denounced it by removing Vince McMahon from the company.
they erased it him. I think in like even on the WWE,
I don't know. I don't even know that that's possible, but I'm sure they gave it the old college
yeah, I
try.
think I think they erased some parts of
They're
him.
just gonna blur out his face like they did with
Yeah,
the old
blur.
WWF logo.
Yeah,
Put in a scram voice scramble in there. It's like you're fired. No, they just replaced it with here. You're fired. You're fired. Actually, just replace it with Trump. You're fired. But let's care about the inconsistencies of wrestling angle. That's much worse. You said that's confusing. That's fair. I just like to point out though that there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense on WWE right now. I'd like you to point out one. Truly, the draft was a complete waste of time. The draft is always a complete waste of time. That okay, fair. The WWE draft is always a waste of time because
yeah, yeah. I
it
would
is
say
kind of
so.
logically stupid because we all know it's the same company. But I mean, when they treat the brands as separate, it at least makes a little. I remember when they had the draft when they didn't even separate the brands, and I was like, "What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, why? Why are we?" The results of the draft lasted like a week. I was like, "Why are we doing this?" Okay, so fair, fair,
Yeah, I think this one was the worst one. I think
and
because I know him move, or
yeah,
not
right.
many
Yeah,
move,
it's like we
but
choose our current roster
yeah, okay,
and someone from NXT. Which actually, okay, so let's. This is just a thought I had recently, actually during the draft. So I was like, I think, and I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to ignore your comment, sir. I'll get to you in a moment. I was just mid thought. Um, wow. So okay, so in regards to bringing people up from NXT, I think this might be a legitimately good idea because again, we want it to appear real, right? So, and this is kind of a conundrum because professional wrestling is technically a combat sport, but they treat the rosters kind of similar to how they do like NFL and NBA teams to a certain extent.
uh-huh.
I mean, they have a draft, for example. So,
Hmm.
oh damn, oh shit, they told me all some. They deleted your comment, my friend. Can you post it back? I don't know why it did that. Shit.
Oh, YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube does that sometimes. It's weird. I promise we
It
never
does.
delete comments. As you can see,
Yeah.
I'm reading them now that call me a dumbass. But anyway, so I think it would be kind of cool and it would make it harder to book, but that's not a bad thing. Is that people in NXT are only eligible to join the main roster once a year, and that's when they do the draft.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Um, I
Or
was just gonna
special
say,
events, maybe. I would say the draft and like special
but they're not
pay
joining
per
the
views.
roster. They're not joining the roster on a special event.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see what
I
you
don't
mean.
know. Maybe that the more I think about it, the more I dislike it. So yeah,
I like the
eh,
idea of it, but
you'd
it
have
feels
to
like it'll be
figure
limited,
out.
you know? Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
but I'll be honest though. The limit. So limiting factors I actually think spur creativity and things like this because you can't just say, oh yeah, they're just going to move up. You have to make it make sense. Now I totally get it. That's more challenging, but that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about here is for things to consistently make sense.
Hmm.
Let's see. Where was I? And they buried Ilya Dragunov, didn't he? I mean, I don't know that they buried him. He just lost a match, like after he won a match in a tournament. I don't
Yeah,
see
I
how
wouldn't call that Barry.
I wouldn't see how Ilya Dragunov being immediately in the King of the Ring tournament after just joining the main roster burying.
Yeah.
I don't, and yeah, I wouldn't call that. I don't watch. Jesus Christ. You say they buried Ilya Dragunov. You say I don't watch WWE, so I'm not in the business to cherry pick inconsistencies in a wrestling storyline. You just did. Like you literally just did that. I say this to point out that any criticism of AEW that I hear from WWE fans ultimately boils down to a nitpick. Okay, first of all, you're assuming I mean, I am a WWE. I'm a wrestling fan, but I'm not exclusively a WWE fan.
Yeah, yeah, me either.
Hell,
Most
when
things, not
AEW,
most, a lot of things I don't like what they do either, so.
hell, when AEW first came around, I flat out hated WWE. I was like, this is the shits.
Oh, yeah.
This is terrible. I'm not a Tony Khan defender either. Well, you kind of are. Oh, Jesus. I'm going to read this again for the people listening at home and for those in the back. Any criticism of AEW that I hear from WWE fans is ultimately boils down to a nitpick. I'm not a Tony Khan defender. I have my nitpicks with him.
What?
But at least Tony Khan doesn't sex traffic women. I mean,
Well, we
all right.
don't know that technically.
I was going to say, we
He
don't
does.
know that. We don't have evidence. I'm not suggesting that Tony
Yeah,
Khan
yeah, of
is.
course not. Of course
I'm just
not.
saying that logically speaking, we don't know he does. Actually, I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that Tony Khan does not, in fact,
No,
traffic
no,
women.
no.
In fact, I'd be shocked if you told me that Tony Khan ever spoke to a woman. But I take that. I kid. I know he's got. Does he have a girlfriend or fiance? I can't remember.
He does? Oh,
He,
wow.
he
That's a
he's
shocker.
he's attached. Now, whether or not
Huh?
she has a penis, I don't know. But I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it is probably homegrown. Oh, I pointed out WWE also has storyline inconsistencies, and being I don't know what Vince being an awful person has to do with this because I never talked about Tony Khan
Yeah.
as a person. I pointed out there's a big plot hole in AEW's biggest storylines, and that's the difference from the Austin McMahon, and that it's different from the Austin McMahon storyline. Talking about Vince's crimes would be like if I just suddenly started talking about the poor treatment of the Jacksonville Jaguars players, which that's the thing. Not as bad as what Vince did, but just as relevant. I understand you're getting defensive, but you're talking to someone that likes both companies. I want AEW to succeed. I'm just not going to ignore their mistakes. And I do the same with WWE. But since I've upset you, I'll leave you be. Fair enough. As a closer, I'll just say that if you read my comments, you'll see that I used the term WWE fans. So I'm not accusing you of making any sort of argument like the ones I pointed out. That's okay. If you think I'm mad, I'm just a passionate wrestling fan. Think those two things are different. A passionate wrestling fan that doesn't watch WWE.
Well, I'll put it this way: like, I like some things they do. I like some things AEW do. Well, not recently, but I did, and I just
Like
want
in
more
the
wrestling.
scheme of things.
Yeah. I just want more. Like even Impact recently, I've been watching that, or
I've
TNA. I mean,
I've
you
been
know, yeah,
pleasantly surprised with the impact with TNA, which again,
yeah,
I said this when we did that episode. It's probably because my expectations are so low, but
yeah,
sorry, not sorry. I'm seeing storylines play out on television,
yeah.
and I am
As
I'm
I will definitely say they have one of the best women's division out of
and
all three. I
and
mean,
that's
out of all
kind
three.
of always been
Yeah,
the case.
yeah,
There was a time when the only reason you watched TNA wrestling was the Knockouts division,
yeah.
specifically Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. But like, yeah, TNA's always had a really good women's division, and the X division has always been, for the most part, it's always been something to watch and look out for.
Yeah,
Which,
like I enjoy it a lot. Like I wish it was more of that on TV.
well, they're, and I'll give credit where credit's due. TNA, and I actually dig the intro they do, where they're basically saying like, "This is who we are, and we're not sorry for it." I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Kudos to you guys
Hmm.
because you set out from the very outset in 2002. You set out to be different, and through the years, you had your high points, you had your lows. But I will say this much: except for that period where they changed the name to Impact.
I hated that so much. I
Well,
didn't understand it. Like
that was some really bad TV.
yeah, it
But
was.
when it was TNA, it always felt like TNA.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm glad that they seem to be going back to that.
Yeah, things for the better. I wish they could combine with like Ring of Honor or something like that because they was pretty good too.
Not now.
Uh, I know not now, but they were.
Which
They were
I'll say it
good.
again. Like Tony Khan also is squandering. The theme of Tony Khan is squandering. He's squandering Ring of Honor because I don't remember where I read it, but I was like, why is he not shopping Ring of Honor to TV networks? Why?
Hmm.
And he said something effective. He wanted to give Warner Brothers Discovery first crack at it. Well, they clearly don't want it, so shop that shit around. There's no excuse
Yeah,
to not have Ring of Honor on television. There isn't. There's absolutely no
yeah,
excuse. If Impact Wrestling was on television, Ring of Honor should be on television.
absolutely.
Like there's no reason whatsoever, except it's probably too much work. But Tony, if it's too much work, you can hire someone to do it for
I
you.
think that's the problem. He doesn't want no one else to do
Well,
it. He wants
actually,
the hands on.
I think if Tony Khan wants to book wrestling, he should book Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it'll be a
Book
good start film.
book Ring of Honor. Book Ring of Honor with your own version of Danny Davis, right? If people don't know, Danny Davis was I think still is running OVW, but like he and Jim Cornette were working the shows together when they
Okay.
created the WWE developmental system down there. Actually, get your own Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette already said he doesn't want to work for or with Tony Khan, but get you your booker and have the booker teach you. Have the booker teach you how to book. Like get your own Dusty Rhodes. And what's funny is you have your own Dusty Rhodes. You had two of them, and you
Yeah.
ran off one of them, and he became WWE champion.
I
But you
forgot
got
Dustin's
another one.
still there. Yeah. Wasted talent.
Well, Tony Khan has squandered a lot, and like, okay, speaking of squandering, Mercedes Monet.
Oh yeah, that was
So
a waste of money.
I'm gonna make Justin smile because I realized recently, or I didn't realize, I learned recently that we both use the same bit, and I didn't know we used the same bit. Somebody better pick up that phone because I fucking called it. What did I say? Mercedes Monet, which I don't even think she lasted a month.
Yeah, you're right. Not even 2 weeks, maybe.
Maybe 3. So, okay, we'll call it almost a month. I think I said with Soraya, it's like, yeah, give it 3 to 4 weeks for.
It's funny how Paige was more popular when she was in wrestling.
Well,
Than she,
I'm trying to think, when was that? Really, since CM Punk.
yeah.
Every time they sign a name now, they get a big, I'm not even going to call it a push because they really don't get a push. There's just excitement for them being there.
Yeah.
They get kind of a they get kind of a pop, lasts for about a month, but then they don't do anything with them.
Hmm.
And then they either don't do anything at all, or by the time they get around to like Swerve Strickland was a big deal when he first signed. They didn't do
Yeah.
fuck all with him, and then when they started to do something with him, it was kind of too late.
It was weird too. It was like they put him with those other two guys. The one looks
Yeah,
like Brock Lesnar, and the other guy, not Brock.
not Brock.
Yeah.
There ain't no shit happening here. But yeah, Tony Khan just squanders everything he has. Like, and he had tremendous goodwill going in.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stress enough how much Tony Khan has squandered everything. He was the goodwill of the fans, a vast roster of talented wrestlers, and some other guys and girls. It's
Nah, some feels
well,
like they cosplaying a wrestler
yeah.
more so they actually a wrestler.
Thank God they had Rio.
Yeah.
I can't like so I'm gonna bitch about Riho for a second too, which oh my god.
Oh my god.
I guess there was not a report because I guess she said it on a TV show in Japan that she made the equivalent like I think they said she made what was it 6 million yen a year, which is equivalent to about $400,000.
Yeah.
And it's like I think they said she
Why?
wrestled 10 matches. But I guess she's having visa issues, so I'm like, okay, hang on.
Thank God.
And I know at one point I looked up her weight. I think she weighs 98 pounds.
I respect less than that.
Yeah,
I was thinking like 77.
she's not that small, but
She's
but
pretty
okay, you
small.
got you, and I guess I guess for whatever reason she's been having visa issues, which is not her fault, but like you've got a wrestler that you're paying, almost half a well, I was just gonna say you're paying him 400 grand to wrestle a couple times a year, and they have visa issues, so you can't even build up, and this person is tiny. I would like to remind everybody the cracks were showing early. This Riho was the first AEW Women's Champion, and she beat Nyla Rose to win the title. Okay. Someone like Britt Baker? Maybe. She's smaller, yes, but it's not
But she's
ludicrous.
yeah, she's actually believable. I
Like Gail
wasn't a
Kim and
Brit
Awesome Kong.
fan
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
Yeah. But Riho weighs 98 pounds, soaking wet with rocks in her pockets. Nyla Rose, I'm pretty sure, could pick up a 100-pound dumbbell with one arm.
Yeah.
So, with that logic, Nyla Rose could pick Riho up by the scruff of the neck and throw her out of the ring with with two, presumably one hand. Certainly with two. She could do this repeatedly. And also, Riho does the spot where somebody covers her, but then she like back bends out of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's the problem with that spot. In order for her to do that, the person pinning her cannot put any weight on her. So you know it's coming because they get in kind of this weird, awkward, like all fours position, but they're not actually putting
yeah,
any
yeah,
weight
yeah.
on her.
It's like they're hovering over her or like
Yeah.
around her.
So you know it's coming. Now here's the other problem with AEW. The opening match on this week's Dynamite was, I think it was Moxley and Danielson versus one of the guys from Aussie Open, and I'll be honest, I don't care or remember the other person. This match looked awful, but it wasn't what they were doing. It was the cameramen being at the worst possible angle. Because I get it. They're wrestlers. They got to do this shit safely, right? But it's the reason why like the fight scenes in movies are shot at certain angles. It's so you can throw a punch and it looks like it's hitting the guy when it's
Yeah,
really like a foot away.
yeah.
Like I saw Danielson did a drop kick, but instead of being behind Danielson or behind the guy taking the drop kick, it was like this
Hmm.
side wide angle thing, and you saw Danielson barely touch the guy. So
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not criticizing Danielson. I'm just saying, like these camera guys, at least for that match, like it looked like dog shit.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they have the money to like book or not book, but hire like good camera guys. But
Or to at
why?
least train them. And like Moxley did the spot in the corner, which I hate this spot to begin with, but some people can make it look decent. He does the spot where he puts the guy in the corner and then punches down. The camera guy
Yeah.
was at the worst possible angle to be at because it looked phonier than a football bat, as Jim Cornette would say. Like, I get it. I'm not criticizing the guys in the ring because clearly, like, I've seen these guys know what the fuck they're doing, but they need help from the camera people to make the shit look good.
Yeah.
You know, it's and honestly, I'll be honest, it turned me off of the match because I'm like, oh, this is just bad.
Because I've seen it so many times, like so many times over the year. It's like the bad camera angles and like they're throwing punches like in the air. I think it was like Evil Uno and
The
his like group of
it
guys.
was
They was
one of
like,
the guys, yeah. Which
yeah,
okay, so like don't get me wrong, because legitimate criticism there, that was dumb. The camera guy didn't have the sense to move.
yeah.
Like you guys are part of the show too. Like you don't see that in WWE. I'm just saying. I'm just saying you don't see it there. By golly, when somebody does a drop kick in WWE, it looks devastating. I tell you,
Yeah.
devastating.
They should hire the guy. Oh God, what is his name? That was in WWE. He
I know
recently
who.
left.
Ah, shit.
The Beaver guy, Beaver Teeth
From
guy.
Beaver. I know you're Kevin Dunn.
Yeah, Kevin Dunn.
And
They
you
should
know what?
hire him.
I will come to Kevin Dunn's defense because a lot of people have been saying it's like, oh, Kevin Dunn's looks like shit. I'm like, you didn't say that at all for like 25 years. Kevin Dunn's production was fine, albeit a bit repetitive, but I'm pretty sure that was Vince McMahon. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the way WWE's and I love they're trying different stuff. Some of it doesn't work, but when it doesn't work, they don't really do it. I'll be honest, I'm not
Yeah.
really a huge fan of them following people through to Gorilla, but I mean, clearly people dig it, so that's not a hill I'm gonna die on. Like I wouldn't do it, but you know,
I'm okay with it. Like I
I
don't
like
have
I
to
said,
see
it's
it, but
not.
it's like it's all right.
But I will say this, what it does do though is it's pulling back the curtain without pulling back the curtain. So it feels like you're seeing something behind the scenes,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's still part of the show. So I get, like I said,
yeah.
I'm not gonna. It's a stylistic choice that I don't personally like, but
Hmm.
like I'm not gonna. But like, see, one thing that New Japan does that I love is when they start a match, they start close up and then they zoom out real quick to show the whole ring. I love that. I've read
Oh
so
yeah.
many people hating it, so I'm like, hey, it's different strokes for different folks. Fortunately, neither one of those are hills I would die on. I will absolutely die on a hill of like, if Bryan Danielson is doing a drop kick to somebody's chest, put the camera somewhere where you can't see that he's landing with his tiptoe to protect the other guy.
Yeah.
Can
Like
we
I don't want them
please?
legitimate to hit
I
each
don't
other.
want him
Like,
to actually
yeah.
drop kick a motherfucker. I get it. I like a good show, and I like strong style as much as the next guy, but let's not get crazy here.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the fact that shit. Who was it? It was an interview. I think it was on the Art of Wrestling many years ago when somebody was talking about the first time they went to Japan, and they're like, "Oh, it's strong style. I'm gonna have to lay it in." And the guy in there, he was like, the guy in there, he was like telling him afterwards. He's like, "Oh, I hate it when all you gaijin come over." So gaijin are foreigners, and he was like, what do you
Yeah,
mean?"
yeah, no.
He's like, "You think strong style is real, and then we have to hit you back, and it's like it's so tiring." And he was like, "Then I got smartened up, and it's like, oh no, they just make it look." Now some of them do stiff
Yeah, yeah,
shots, but
yeah.
it's like that. It's not everybody. Like Okada, honestly, is one of the guys who makes it look super stiff, but it's not.
Hmm.
Chops aside, because everybody lays chops in because they want to make the chest red and bleed and
Right, yeah.
whatnot. But I don't know. I do agree with Jim Cornette. I like chops, but I think we're getting a little too chop heavy, and I fucking hate. There's two chop spots I hate more than anything. Thankfully,
Oh, what,
thankfully,
Sheamus?
no. Okay, I don't love Sheamus's chop spot, but
Yeah.
I don't love it and I don't hate it.
Uh-huh.
But fortunately, one of these is only done by one person that I'm aware of in New Japan, so it's not that big of a deal. The Mongolian chops.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it is so fake looking and stupid looking. I
Yeah.
hate it. Then the other one that I freaking hate, which blame New Japan for this too. This is the first place I saw it, is the whole like rapid chop.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It you
Rapid.
can't
Yeah,
these
yeah.
can't possibly hurt
Yeah, yeah.
at all. And
Uh,
I think it was Mustafa Ali that no sold it in a New Japan ring.
oh, you did? Oh,
I
I gotta
think
see that.
I think it was him. And I was like, "Oh, I love you so much right now." Because it's like this can't possibly hurt. You don't have enough space to generate enough energy
Yeah.
to make it hurt. Which, by the way, anyone who's interested, if you want to say, "Well, you've never been chopped," I have, motherfucker. I took two.
Hot too.
Actually, so I've been chopped technically twice. Once was off camera, and that one hurt. I'll never confess this, but you can see it on the Arte Media channel. Jake gets chopped because I told the viewers we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will let Benchy chop me. He actually chopped me twice because he said, "Well, my chop is the overhand," and I said, "Screw it, do both." Like I'm not gonna lie, it didn't really hurt. Like I felt it, but it honestly didn't hurt that much. It's
Uh-huh.
loud as shit though.
It does. It
Like
sounds really good. Like
it
it hurts.
sounded great. And like don't get me wrong. I mean like I felt it, but if I'll put it this way, if I was in like a competitive fight, that wouldn't have done
Uh-huh.
anything. It wouldn't have done shit. Like
One of the best chops I think I've seen or personally done was Chris Benoit. Like his chops
he had good
were
ones, but
legit.
we all know that Gunther has the best chops.
Oh, well, him too. I would say
Yeah.
more recent. Yeah, yeah, Gunther.
Yeah, Benoit had really good chops.
Yeah,
Speaking of bad human beings,
yeah.
there's a downer. They did erase him. But, oh well. We've been going about an hour and a half. You got any more bitching to do, or shall we call it for this evening and let the people fester on their hatred for myself
Oh,
and Mr.
Jim.
Cornette here?
Nah, it was good. They recovered enough.
They've been through enough. Well, everyone, thank you for enjoying this episode of Down the Middle. We will see you again in 2 weeks. I guess we'll figure out what we're going to talk. Maybe next time we should just plan on. Let's just plan on. We'll go through the AEW roster.
Okay,
We'll
sounds good.
fire some people. It'll be a nice, easy topic. And be sure to check out Part of Your Broadway World now that this episode is over. I believe, what's her next episode? I gotta remember. She is going to, I know this too. I'm just having a massive. Oh, she's interviewing a gentleman who is producing a documentary about Disney, Behind the Glass, I think it's called, or Behind the Magic
Oh,
Mirror,
cool.
something to that effect. It's going to be released soon, but she's got an exclusive interview with the director of the documentary. So check that out for sure. That's coming up, I believe, later this week, but you should just go
That's cool.
subscribe to her channel so you get notified. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and like the video, share it to your friends, your enemies, your mailman, the
Everybody.
people that wash your dog if you have one. Just tell them about it. And if you know fans that are if you know people that are massive AEW shills, send them all the videos. Just
Oh
because
man.
unfortunately, you know what spreads views more than anything online, and I actually do hate this. Hatred spreads more views than anything on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
The shorts that have gotten the most views on across all channels are hot takes or controversial statements, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be this guy, but you're telling me it's what you want to see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. This YouTube.
it's YouTube, man. But anyway, we will see you guys next week, and make sure stay tuned. There's a lot of really cool changes coming.
Cool.
Ominous.